Welcome back, everyone, to Deadlock Fight Night, presented by Intel. EU went the distance, but now it's time for a little bit of action here at North America. I'm ZP here with DDK and Dan. Heading into it, we got the return of Llama Lords, but they have been poached, and of course, they lost one person to his own desires, so to speak. So Llama Lords with a new 2.
Yeah, and it's interesting also, ZP, because for those of you guys that just joined us for North America, we asked this question to Listic just now after the win. Why are we seeing no Shiv in EU, but NA loves to play Shiv? And he's like, well, NA don't know how to buy anti-heal, was his answer. So very new information, ZP. I can't wait for us to digest some of this as we progress through the broadcast.
Well, speaking about the broadcast, if you're just tuning in, if you missed EU, but you're getting here in NA and you're wondering what is the deal with Deadlock Fight Night, we got you covered. Deadlock Fight Night, it's pretty simple. We invite 2 teams from each region every week, and those 2 challenging teams fight each other. The winner goes on to fight our champion in the money match. There's a graphic there. As you can see, we just got done with EU, where Paravision went on to try and reclaim the throne from Virtus Pro, falling short, though, in a close 3-map series. Virtus Pro just a little bit too good on the macro, Dan.
Yes, really deep hero pools, great strategy, and executed to perfection. VP definitely a standout performer in EU. And actually, I think CP, what's interesting is that maybe EU could start to look a little bit like NA, because VP are beginning to look quite dominant. I think much more so than we have been used to seeing in EU. However, in NA, we are used to seeing dominance from Hydra Nation.
Yeah, and Hydra Nation, I mean, they've just, it's been unparalleled excellence. But speaking of unparalleled excellence, we got the one and only Mitch joining us here, Mr. Uber himself. And I've introed you a little bit early here, Mitch, because we're going straight into our merch read. And you know what? I can hype up the merch, but so can you.
Yes, I'm pumped about it. I might be one of the only people that hasn't actually obtained any. You can see it doesn't really match with... Once we have some, excuse my French, bullshit on a shirt, with our merch, I will get it. Until that point, it's just not quite crazy enough for me, ZP, but I do see you are currently modeling some right now. And here we see our model, Andrew Rush, with the latest addition to the Deadlock Fight Night catalog. That is right. That is real cotton, folks. The Abrams shirt. Read a book, MFer.
Read a book, sucker. It was a little bit more to the point in the past, but yeah, Deadlock Fight Night, proud to present our new line of merch. One of the best ways you can support the broadcast and keep us, get the lights on, get gooped. Of course, that was the old read, but new read, we got new extra stuff, but it's pretty cool. It's just legally distinct enough. But
yes.
I was gonna say,
no copyright issues here. It's fun, and obviously it's a huge part of what keeps the light on here as well. So if you guys are watching the stream and you're thinking of a way that you like to support the stream, not really sure how, this is one of the ways that you can, and also get some great swag out of it for yourself. Deadlockfightnight.com. You can head over there, look for the store page, and buy some stuff.
Yeah. Also, we got a new Earn shirt, and the quote directly from our producer, Hex says we got new stuff every week. That's right. Hex still lurks in the shadows. Been following us in community tournaments back to the old OW days. Yeah, that's right. That's one thing. Like, one of these days, we need to bring him in on a box just to do the merch read.
Yeah,
be great.
Oh, that's a great idea, actually. I love that idea.
He was the goat of the sellout back in the early OW days. So yes, that's why he's the one that's writing our ad reads. I think we need more Hex. Keep churning him out.
Well, speaking of Hex, as I read down his run of show, coming up next year, of course, is our rosters for our 2 teams. Where again, a lot of movement for Llama Lords. Where they kind of got the double, where you have one player that may or may not have gotten hardware ID banned out of the game, and then you got another player where you did so well against Hydra Nation that they have now absorbed your power. Lord NM no longer on Llama Lords, but the 2 replacements here, they got Scout, where it's a domino effect. Scout used to be on TF2 Boomers. He has been poached and has been upgraded to Llama Lords, essentially. Dan, you've been around esports a long time. You see this a lot, especially in the beginning. The musical chairs continue.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, it's everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to be dominant, and it's got to be done. If you get a free upgrade, you got to take it. And I feel like if you're the team that's seeing your teammate get kind of poached in this way, I feel like most people are usually cool with it. It's like, I understand, man. You got to do it for your career. So hopefully there's not any bad blood. But if there is beef, we're here for it too.
I mean, this team, I quite like them, right? I mean, come on, they won a fight night, which is pretty impressive. Obviously, they had to have that stripped from them, which is totally fine. But I think Brocane and Akram are great solo laners if that's what's needed. And Young Kalk, Obviously, he's listed here as the Abrams player. The guy plays a bunch of different stuff. We saw him on a Shiv. He took over the game. Like, it was incredible. That's the crazy part. It wasn't even the cheater that really gave Llama Lords the edge, even though it should have been obvious considering they were on gun build, everything, whatever they were playing. But and like Naked, obviously, incredible support player. I think this team's really well rounded. Curious to see how Scout and Sizlucky sort of fit into everything, but the core is still there. And I really think the core is what gave them that level of success, those couple fight nights ago.
Yeah, I mean, Scout, you kind of expect to be more in the playmaking roles, pocket if available, but things like Paradox, Holiday, etc. But without further ado, bring us over to Melee Creeps, a team that a lot of people think over Llama Lords at times can be number 2 in NA. It's Melee Creeps and Llama Lords have really been going back and forth for the number 2 spot in the tournaments that have been available. And yeah, I mean, interesting names here to look at too. A team that's not shy to play Bebop, Dan. You think about Low Main that's pulled it out, but Bebop in general, more of an NA special than we've seen in EU, though EU has dabbled, as we've seen in the last 2 weeks.
Yes, EU has given Bebop respect finally, and you can definitely see why. Really, really great hero that I think kind of fits into like a kind of a weird niche in terms of initiation, because no one else kind of has something that has so much range, because obviously it's kind of like a Paradox swap without the risk of swapping yourself into that position, and you can do it with from crazy ranges. There's no other hero has a skill shot, I suppose, kind of quite like that. So it gives Bebop, and a Bebop expert especially, a lot of opportunities to convert massively for the team. So I love that we're starting to see it more. I feel like it always made sense, and that Bebop can always, in theory, work. And we have seen games turned around specifically by Bebop play when the team is behind, which is really, that's what Bebop should be there to offer you. So love to see that, and looking forward to it today.
It was just the one game, I think, at the end of the series between Melee Creeps and Hydronation last week. We got to see the Bebop. It didn't really, I think, play out the way they would have liked it to, but this is a team that, prioritizes Wraith fairly highly. Also, really wants to fight for the McGinnis pick when they can get it. So that's something to bear in mind when we come into this pick and ban. If they can get the McGinnis, they really try and push that as far as they can. Act's obviously a very more than serviceable player, at support. So I'm curious to see what they've got for us. They're mostly Kelvin McGinnis player.
Now, of course, before we get into the draft, it's 2 challenging teams against each other, and you might wonder, well, gee, how do you decide who gets the choice of first pick? Well, we have a tradition here on Deadlock Fight Night. That's right. It is nothing short of mole versus mole combat. 2 moes, no krills, boxing gloves, just a ring full of carnage. Let's get on and already, Mitch. You get this parry, kick it off.
Yeah, I mean, ABG hits that nasty little parry, but doesn't actually convert it into 2 more melee hits, but still an aggregate winning out. Baits out another parry from Naked, and if Naked trades melee hits at this point, he knows his goose is essentially cooked. Needs to find a big parry opportunity, but ABG hits yet another one. Oh, bro, that was clean. He maybe took 2 hits over that whole fight.
Dude, I feel like we should mix it up. We need to get some Kelvins for either side, throwing in the healing nades. We've got to get some crowbars thrown into the ring. We got to spice it up.
I mean, we got close to that the other week where there was a little bit of drama in the TF2 Boomers where they had one of their modes just go to the outskirts, and people were, crying foul and everything else. But, a little bit of rule bending here,
The sanctity of the Mo 1v1 ZP. It can't be contravened.
Yeah, you say that until you find out what the Moes are packing in their boxing gloves, but I digress. Draft getting started here. Llama Lords versus Melee Creeps. And also, I mean, do I expose Jason right now on Casters Live? Mitch, I put that burden on you one way or another. I feel like Jason should be exposed, but maybe not.
Oh, what did he do? Let me see.
Read yourself.
Oh, Jason thought Mo was the guy who rode on the back. To be fair, I was debated because Jason said that in the last show, in the EU show. He's like, oh, well, actually, it'd be crazy if there was a bunch of Mo in the stands watching the Krills fight. And I'm like, it's Mo. Shut for Mole. Mo.
All right, gentlemen. The only thing that really matters is this.
I am Pashi Pop, and Jason Kaplan is my favorite caster.
Confirmed. I hope they had you muted for that, Jason.
We did not. Everyone heard it. But, we also heard the first ban Paradox coming up from Melee Creeps. Not wanting to give it to Llama Lords. Llama Lords, meanwhile, we'll see what they ban. But most importantly here, Dan, what gets taken away from Melee Creeps with their first pick? Because, the storyline coming in here was Shiv. NA likes playing Shiv. Also, though, NA might like playing Sinclair because Sinclair, underpicked in EU. And, okay, Vindicta ban still respected.
I forgot about Vindicta after EU. Because but yeah, that makes sense. Vindicta is still quite the menace. I would hope to see you know, my mind gets kind of blown sometimes when we go between the EU and the NA broadcast because of the pick prioritization and how it differs. But like seeing Viscous, you know, seeing like Wraith first picks was definitely something that I could envisage. But you know, I'm kind of curious here with melee creeps what they've been finding the most success with. As you said, like the Shiv has been like really powerful. We get Holiday to open things up, and Holiday does feel like it can be somewhat of a Paradox replacement. So in terms of the role that it has, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen Cool Cheese play this once, and it did not go well for melee creeps. So they do value the Paradox, but in DFN history, they haven't had a great showing with this hero yet.
Llama Lords, though, back-to-back picks. This is where they can secure their front line, where you talk about what do you want in NA, what are you truly valuing? Well, they've talked a lot about Shiv. Wraith, though, makes sense. I think that's one thing that both EU and NA may be fully agreeing on finally. You know, you look at Wraith's overall stats, Wraith is not quite the 100% pick ban that it has been in EU, but I think NA has slowly but surely learning their lesson. But the second pick here, does Llama Lord secure a Shiv for Calc, or do they go Warden, where, I mean, a lot of times Calc would have been playing Warden and simply was banned out early. They haven't had the opportunity to pick Warden for weeks now, and instead they say, no, none of that. We value Calico.
Okay. I mean, so the Wraith is like a pretty common Rocane pick on this team. They've had some very, very good games on that one. And Calico, I mean, we've just seen how effective she is, even though she's been tuned down a little bit with the cooldown on Return to Shadows extended. It's not enough really to knock her out of this position as like a very Swiss Army knife and just someone who's always seems to be relevant in the game no matter what phase. Pretty scary laning as well. Remember, like there's damage tacked onto both halves of that ultimate when you disappear, when you reappear. So it's like free 300 damage burst there basically out of nowhere. You've got to be careful.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting to me with Calico too is I think Listic actually really showed how powerful Calico can actually be in the early game, and I feel that sort of serves counter to the playstyle that Holiday may have, because Holiday again also can be very disruptive. If again, we're gonna have to see if these teams will play it like we've seen it as, and the way we've seen it played is highly impactful in the early game. So if both sides are kind of abusing those mechanics, I feel like the Calico can serve as kind of a counter to the early pressure that Holiday can provide as well.
Also, this is another unique part about NA relative to EU, if you've come in from the EU broadcast, is that in EU, you'll get supports picked pretty late in the draft, generally speaking. Yeah. I mean, not always, but it is a good trend. In NA, people really value Kelvin, and Kelvin will get picked early or banned away from teams that like picking Kelvin quite a bit, where the old iteration of Hydronation before Quig, I believe, quit the game is what happened there.
Ooh.
You know what? Forget that thought. Sinclair is in action, and in terms of where Sinclair's been being played recently with the changes, it's been support Sinclair.
Yeah, look, I think that like you build supportive, right? And you can still have the ability to copy the utility from one of your opponent's ultimates, right? We talked about Sinclair also be able to be picked when like you have Paradox banned, you don't get the Holiday, you still want like an easy engage or someone who could be a real nuisance. Being able to copy that lasso is really important. It does require you though to be in the same lane as Holiday, right? Sinclair needs to be able to see Holiday to copy that, so that obviously can dictate where you end up setting up. Sinclair's looked really good so far. I'm glad to see Llama Lords pick it so early.
Yeah, I think the AoE change on the Hex makes that even stronger than it was previously. I think also having like greater range on the assistant is going to just make him more practical, because it lasted a lot longer previously, but oftentimes when you're fighting with it, like people are going to come in and out, so you weren't really getting the value.
I'll return to my training.
And again, this is kind of the debate we're having off broadcast of, well, do you prevent Calc from getting the Shiv, or do you prevent Calc from getting the Warden? Overall, the scrim data is in. You don't let Calc get Warden. It came a little bit later in the draft. There are other priorities that were being had, but Warden is banned, and now this opens up Llama Lords perhaps now to take the Shiv that you would have thought would be earlier, but I think Calco has just become too much of a priority regardless of what region you're in, and Sinclair kind of the X Factor pick. But instead it's Geist, where obviously, yeah, okay, this also makes sense given where Geist has been valued throughout the day.
Yeah, so obviously like Calc has showed us 4 games of Warden, and he's only won half of those, so it's not been like the most far and away like, you know, impact hero, but definitely like one that's an easy sort of pick up here. Llama Lords getting the Lady Geist I think is important. I mean, again, this has been something that we saw Rocane play once I think Arkham has also played it. So again, like your solo laners here, you have the Wraith and the Geist for both solos. I think that's pretty sweet. You've definitely put them in strong positions here.
All right, Mo and Krill picked up pretty early. Interesting early prioritization on Mo and Krill. Usually you tend to see Mo, I think, picked a little bit later, unless it's like somewhat core to the strategy that you're going for. And so usually if you're going to get a Mo and Krill as part of your front line, usually you want it to go along with a setup. Like it's a setup for another character, like something that has burst damage. Like a Yamato is like a very like typical pickup in addition to that. And Yamato is not available. Of course, we're going to get Pocket instead. So, that's a nice alternative in terms of playmaking.
Well, the one thing that worries me when I look at Melee Creep's roster so far is that it's not the tankiest roster at the moment. They almost certainly have to pick up a frontliner with their final pick. Meanwhile, you look over at Llama Lords, I mean, they're pretty well positioned. They already have 2 frontliners. They could even add on even more with a Shiv, and by adding a Shiv, they're also going to prevent Melee Creeps from grabbing the same. Or an Abrams.
There we go.
Yeah, Viscous, yeah. Oh.
Sorry, I think you have to take it here because that's where Melee Creeps are going to snap it up. You can take a pick 6 Abrams. We see fairly common as well. I don't think we have. I think like on Melee Creeps we've seen low main play it. I think so there's definitely an option there. But you're right. It's not looking the most durable setup. Also, there's a genuine question of where's the damage? There's no like sit in your lane, farm till late. Carry on the side of Melee Creeps here. And there it is, the Shiv. Sneaks through at the end of the draft.
CP looks hurt. He looks physically wounded.
I'm more hurt for Melee Creeps because this is an insanely tanky lineup. I mean, effectively, when you think about how people play some of these heroes, it's a 4 frontliner comp, and it's going up against a comp that is, comparatively at most going to have 2. Like maybe they pick up an Abrams here at the end,
but it's damage.
It's. I feel like the way Melee Creeps is drafted here, Melee Creeps effectively, I mean, they're going to have to win early the mid game and never fall behind, because if they fall behind, I just don't think they're coming back up against how Llama Lords is just going to be really hard to even get a single kill with 4 pretty powerful frontliners down.
And even soul distribution for Melee Creeps probably doesn't feel all that great either. Like, you are not taking over the game as like Mo and Krill or Mirage or even Holiday necessarily. If you have a good roaming, that's very good, but like you need to funnel these souls into your Pocket Infernus desperately. And you have very strong solo laners on Llama Lord's side. It could be, it's less likely Geist now, right? But like Shiv Wraith could be like either Geist or Shiv in those solo lanes. You have like the roaming constant pressure of Calico. We know what Sinclair can do. Viscous is extremely effective, on the rotate here. I really enjoy this Llama Lord's composition. I think it looks very powerful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm actually super afraid for Melee Creeps. I totally agree with what you've both said in terms of the difficulties that they're going to be up against. They're going to need like insane amounts of pressure and playmaking, but that's also going to be hard with how tanky it is. And I'm so afraid of when Shiv begins to get ahead. Obviously, they can apparently just build anti-heal and it'll be fine. But we'll see. We'll see if that'll be the case or not. I think the Infernus it can be a nice response to some of the tankiness, but at the same time, like the amount of damage you got to spread out across all of these different heroes is kind of wild.
Also, I think the other thing that may become even more of a dynamic as time goes on is that one of the main reasons you pick Kelvin, I mean, Kelvin's overall kit is quite good, right? But Frozen Shelter, teams have gotten more and more innovative of ways of getting high value off Frozen Shelter to create isolations to get pickoffs. Well, when you think about higher priority targets for audience participation on Sinclair, who is usually getting played in a more supportive role, you're just going to be looking to grab the other Kelvin, and then both teams have Dome. I think that the coming with the Sinclair after the early Kelvin pick, actually, I think might carry a little bit more value in the draft strategy on its own, even all else aside. So, yeah, I mean, the Llama Lords lineup right now, I definitely favor on paper.
Did we have to see a Kelvin at 2 in this draft? I mean, like, looking at, we have the Sinclair picked up for Lava Lords, but like, Ivy is still open. McGinnis was still open here as well. Like, Melee Creeps could have taken either of those if they had let the Kelvin go a little bit later. They really pried it very high, but it's, created a comp that's not the most compelling look, I'll be honest.
It is. I mean, Mirage is good at dealing with very tanky opponents because of the Jin's Mark and how that can like scale up. But At the same time, though, it just does seem a bit overwhelming. We're going to have to see a big performance. We're going to see them be able to protect their extremity laners. They're going to have to also really enable like Pocket to pop off, and maybe, you know, with Holiday taking, you know, doing some initiation, maybe that's some of the win cons that they have. We'll just have to see how it plays out, but it's definitely a scary comp to be up against.
Well, I mean, specifically, I think you're going to need Pocket, Holiday, and Mo to just be looking for fights, being super highly mobile, and basically crafting a soul lead early for melee groups, because I just don't think they're running a comp right now where if they get significantly far behind that they're going to have any true capability of getting back into the game. So, you know, effectively, it's all based on the early game and just somehow securing that early advantage.
Yeah, I like how we've done this, guys. We've created this landscape of just hopelessness right now. You know, it's only up really in terms of you know, how our expectations could be defied in terms of what they're able to pull off. And I do love what you're talking about, having that roaming kind of like rat pack of, you know, you've got the Mo, the Holiday in the pocket, kind of just trying to make plays across the map. That would be really good. Also, just to really just increase the chance that AVG and Pochipop can get farm, like have pressure away from them. You know, split pushing becomes more possible. So yeah, I want to see that too. Let's get the pressure going for melee creeps.
Speaking a bit of pressure, Mitch, final thoughts here before we get a little bit deeper into the game. What are you looking to see here in the lane phase?
Again, I want to point out that like Sinclair doesn't have like an innate fire rate slow on Vexing Bolt anymore. That's only after you put sort of 2 ranks in it, so not quite as annoying. That's maybe why we're seeing you know, him become more supportive, but it's pretty annoying. The poke is still intense, and then an increase in gun velocity means that you can actually last hit much more reasonably in lane right now. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out here. It's definitely worth looking at this lane because it obviously contains the Shiv, who wants to depart from this lane fairly frequently. Young Calc loves to be active over the map, and there it is. Cool Cheese already gets picked off.
Dan, I love the timing from Mitch. They're saying, you know, hey, it's pretty annoying as you just see a Mo being beaten within an inch of their life, and the pressure in the lane already coming to bear.
Yeah.
And you think about heroes you don't want to get an early, you know, lead. Well, it would be Shiv, would be pretty high on that. So already Calc starting with a kill. Not the best start for melee creeps.
Yeah, the pressure from Sinclair is actually pretty dangerous, to say the least, with the Vexing Bolt. And I mean, I'd be curious to see what the build looks like, if we'll be hex maxing, or if we will be, you know, going for just, you know, focusing on the Vexing Bolt, because, you know, obviously the hex got buffed. It was already really good, and just having that extra CC in these fights is going to be extremely problematic, especially to deal with Mo. If Mo, you know, lands a combo, we just hex him. You know, just a really easy solution. And also, hopefully, they've fixed whatever that Sinclair bug was that happened in one of my games where I hexed someone and they stayed hexed for 10 minutes in a row. That's pretty cool. We were losing, like, but then we won the game because of that.
It's just like, well, what is the tournament rule if someone just turns into a rabbit for 10 minutes? It's like, well, you just ask the other team to kill you nicely and go on from there. So long as there's not a way of abusing it, which, you know, to the best of our knowledge, no one has figured out the infinite rabbit tech to that degree.
And I'll let you know that it was really strong because when you killed them, they respawned as the rabbit too, so it was pretty sick.
Oh, okay. Well, if they respawn as rabbit, then you're just done. I mean, you've won the game. That is the final magic trick, as it were. But looking back here over in lane 3, see Kelvin under all sorts of pressure. Again, it's the Shiv Sinclair lane that has been just wreaking havoc on this lane for melee creeps thus far. And you look at the health across the board. Pochipop, he'll get a little bit of damage on the Arcrum over in lane 4.
Yeah, so fighting back a little bit in lane 3, it looks like here for melee creeps. But yeah, that's a very hard lane to win by the looks of things. In the meantime, also, you can see AVG doing a decent job like pressuring back Rocane on that Wraith on lane 1, but nothing too monumental happening anywhere just yet. And obviously not really a big soul difference at this point. You rarely see that 4 minutes in. But I think we set up the game like fairly well, like the dynamics we're looking for. And for Llama Lords, they're going to definitely be able to pressure objectives pretty quickly if they want to do that, ZP, I think. So that's something I'd be worried about if I was melee creeps as well.
You know, the thing for Llama Lords is that, I mean, obviously if you have objectives taken, you go for them, but I think if nothing else, they want stability. And as I talk about stability, we got Holiday coming in, a little bit of pressure onto the Shiv. Calc, though, able to just walk away. And yeah, I mean, to the other point I was getting at is for Llama Lords, I don't think they necessarily have to be the prime movers right now, because you look at the compositions, they just win if they don't fall significantly far behind. It's on melee creeps to be the ones to make stuff happen, and as I say that, Falco right now, looking for Infernus over here in lane 1, and AVG just able to walk away to the zip line, but still, time lost in farm.
Yeah, the wave was against his tower, so you're going to be losing quite a lot of value there. That's like, it can be fine if you force back to base, as long as you're the one that's like pushed the lane pretty deep. But yeah, missing out a lot of souls here, so that's going to be some early advantage for sure for Rokane. And I like the Holiday attempt at a gank. We've got to see if it's going to pan out here. The lasso comes in, trying to get all the damage there. There's the barrels, there's the jump pad. Shiv trying to make the great escape. Is it going to be possible here? Some assistance might be on the way. It's looking very sketchy down here in the basement. But finally, it's going to be lane main to go down on the Holiday. Young Calc will also fall. And it's a party down there in the basement, ZP.
Yeah, it wasn't quite in killing blow range. Still enough damage was done to make it a trade. Take a look here. Things getting down and dirty in the sublay already. 22k to 23k naked.
Ooh.
Finding Poshy Pop. I think Poshy Pop was in the middle of trying to travel away and could not get enough clearance. Already turned to a classic NA brawl, Dan.
It has, yeah. The Vexing Bolt is nasty. It's certainly nasty. Yeah, I would expect that we're going to see a lot more Singular, especially with the buffs. I think the kit is actually awesome. And I think the ult is actually pretty easy to use, but nice dive coming in there from Calico. The burst damage is so hard to be ready for it at this point in the game.
I mean, there's a reason why Cold Front is bought early on anyone in the front line that's having any sort of early dive. I mean, not only does it slow you down, the burst damage is actually ridiculous. It's still pretty good even for getting camps, one of the highest value items in the game. Meanwhile, though, this is where Calico really shows her presence. You have one kill, can immediately Ava over, look for more pressure on the other lane. Telekinesis in, Infernus under the gun. Here comes Calico, looking for the fall through on the end, into the shadows, not even needed as AVG goes down.
Yeah, beautiful setup there. Just as you were talking about it, just roaming from the Calico is really dangerous, and we mentioned that Holiday can be maybe a balancing force to that. But on the lane 4 and lane 3 side of the map, we had like a somewhat of a skirmish, but there's been a disengage, and we got more pressure on that lane 3 Guardian now from the Pocket and the Holiday. That's going to be responded to by Arkrim on the Geist, and that's also going to pull across the Shiv. A couple players from lane 4 going to come across to try to punish those players who were deep. They're falling back though. So right now it feels like, this push and pull is definitely somewhat even, considering what I feel like you'd expect based on some of the kill action we've seen.
I was expecting Wraith to get some hands. With the minimap, you have a Mo just lurking in the shadows. Instead, it's going to be a Mo versus Calico. A little bit off screen. Wraith, meanwhile, just taking a little bit of cover by the tower. Of course, if you're Cool Cheese, you would love to get an uncontested combo pickoff. Of course, as we're talking about this, over lane 3, 2 quick pickoffs for Saya. Just completely cleaning out the lane. And you look at the progress there, might even lead to a Guardian.
And we got Calico coming back over to lane 1 here. It's going to be a 3v2 in favor of Llama Lords, so melee creeps rightly falling back to the tower, but might not be safe even around the tower. As now the push comes onto lane 3, that's got to be respected, so we're going to see our Calico player coming back. This is Lucky trying to defend this, using the ult as well to slow things down here, prevent that extra damage being done to the Guardian. It's being extra annoying. In comes Viscous as well. Scout looking to send them back, but Corgis, it seems unrelenting here. Still wants to stay deep, gets the Guardian into the combo. There's the Frozen Shelter though. This should have really helped to secure this one here for melee creeps.
Goo Ball coming out in response here from Scout. Gets comboed, able to cube, Goo Ball. Should be safe, but while that was going on, you had a gank over in the lane 4 where Calc ran afoul of Holiday, and right now, melee creeps is kind of sitting within their victory conditions, Dan. We kind of set it up that they needed to be pretty aggressive, especially with Pocket, Holiday, and Mo. They've done just that, and speaking of Holiday, finishes off Arkrim. Nice little 6k lead. Telekinesis, though, meanwhile, in progress. Lane 1, and AVG cannot get away. Rokane will be a problem if some of this gank pressure can't move over in the lane 1.
Yeah, great work there from them. And it's gonna get worse here for melee creeps as Holiday unable to escape. Lomain is not long for this world, as that's going to be a Guardian converted as well for Llama Lords on lane 3. So really fighting back, but here is Melee Creeps on lane 1, trying to potentially maybe get some value back themselves, looking to try to take down that Guardian. However, there will be some resistance. We've got both the Wraith and the Viscous in there to try to defend this Guardian. Oh my god, that puddle punch was huge.
So that was a flex lock coming up for Melee Creeps. A little bit ahead on the macro here so far. 3-man push into lane 1. That'll be the final Guardian going down. And the Guardian situation is probably accounting for the bulk of the soul difference we're seeing right now, but AVG blowing up Arkham. No teleporter able to be taken.
Okay, will there be survival on the cards here for AVG? Yes, able to fall back in time. Some burn damage, but not really too much to sweat if you're a Calico. You've got so many ways to sustain. The teleport coming in, potentially here. I don't know, is it going to be stopped? It will not be stopped. Out of there. And that looks like Melee Creeps are unable to convert them.
Good game sense there for Calc not to stay and fight. Sometimes you gotta know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and that was a fold, the amount of people that rotated over. But the troubling part for Llama Lords here, when you look at overall map control, they lose several pickoffs. You have Axe just rotating the urn over. There's not going to be any contest here whatsoever. Llama Lords instead just trying to catch up on Guardian stand. That's kind of the trade we're getting here, going, okay, you'll get urn, we'll at least get one Guardian, get a little bit closer to our flex. But Melee Creeps nursing a lead, which, again, is kind of what they had to do with this composition to truly make it work.
Yeah, and Saya's doing a great job on Pocket as well, just like making sure, just staying up on souls as much as possible. Like that's going to be a really important factor, especially with Pocket's ability to burst down players. We talked about how tanky Llama Lords could potentially become. And also if they're able to, get ahead and stay ahead and do enough damage to kind of start to snowball things before Wraith really begins to come online, that's going to be nice too. But that said, Holiday is always online. You just need a jump pad and a barrel and it's a party.
Yeah, and Holiday also just, a unique character as far as scaling with mechanical skill, where even if Crackshot isn't the focus of the build, you still get a whole lot more out of it with more accurate headshots. Meanwhile, though, lane 4, bit of walker pressure coming in right now. Melee Creeps pushing the issue. Llama Lords looking to defend in full. Is lucky, though, getting caught on the outskirts in lane 3. Melee Creeps pushing down 2 lanes, while Llama Lords just defending lane 4. Frozen Shelter used. Calc off on the finish, finds a Kelvin.
Yeah, Melee Creeps trying to really focus on these objectives, and they have generally been behind on some of the kills, but yeah, they've been ahead on the objectives. But now the objectives are starting to dwindle. They're going to have to start to convert on that soul lead, try to find more favorable trades on these situations. And well, seems like that might be the case here, and maybe in trouble. Shiv is getting bursted, but still pretty healthy here. The Divine Shield coming in from a distance, and
yeah, and Naked is coming in when the support has audience participation up. This is not necessarily the most favorable fight. However, Calc gets completely caught, frozen out. Shelter goes down, and he is completely frozen out without a hope of being saved.
Well, the action just does not stop his EP into the combo, and that's another kill, and they can probably get the walker off of this. 3 players there. We have Arkham on the guys ziplining over, but there's just not going to be able to do anything to stop this, I don't think. Against 3 players, quick Geist Bomb is going to come down, but that's more of just a courtesy. It's not going to have too much of an impact here. This walker is gone. And that's fantastic work. And right now, Rokane obviously has a TP, is trying to beginning to pressure that lane 2 walker, but not much to be done there. And in the meantime, it really feels like CP Melee Creeps are in the driving seat on the map at the moment.
They absolutely are, and I mean, Scoutcam picked off the cherry on top of that. The real problem is, too, is, we talked about this in U, where you have some comps where you wonder, what is your condition back into the game? And, Llama Lords, they are running a comp that, while it'd be great if they were neutral to ahead, their comeback options are, somewhat limited. They don't have as many pick style options. I mean, they have a telekinesis, sure, but it's not like they're running a Paradox. It's not like they're running a Holiday. They have to work a little bit harder to get clean pickoffs. And once you start getting a gap like this being made, Dan, finding those opportunities, it honestly becomes very difficult.
Yeah, and I think Pocket especially is one of those heroes that they get ahead of this time of the game. Their spirit damage can start to scale up really, really quickly, and that burst damage feels overwhelming when you're up against it. You don't have enough money to really get those the spirit armor in and just like find ways to mitigate that massive burst spirit damage, you're just always going to start these fights pretty behind on health. So that's a huge issue that I really worry about for Llama Lords. And so AZP, we started off with a hopeless, desolate world for melee creeps, so they've turned it into a fertile ground.
650 bag just being dropped there, immediately snatched on up. Melee creeps keeping the pressure up here on lane 4. And look at this pocket going in. A huge affliction. That is about as meaty as it gets. A full course seasoning onto Llama Lords. And melee creeps are ready to feast.
Oh my god, that is just beautiful. We talked about that burst spirit damage, and what can you do against that? Absolutely nothing. That's another walker that's going to be converted. And on the other end of things, we've got Scout trying to slow down another walker from going down. But right now, melee creeps are snowballing the entire map, and with it, their souls are growing out of control here. A 20k advantage. And what's that? Axe is going to pick up the urn.
Well, the parry, a little bit of reprieve there between Scout and Naked. And perhaps they doth go a little bit too deep there, Dan. Losing a few pickoffs there. Actually quite important to Llama Lord, just trying to keep their heads above water.
Yeah, I'm curious what the kills actually look like, because I feel like melee creeps have been happy to trade somewhat to the negative in certain cases, just to focus on objectives, which has been working out. And they are ahead on 2 walkers at this point in the game. Yeah, we can see. Okay, melee creeps are slightly ahead on the kills. Very ahead on the action points, and a 3 kill streak for Poshy Pop. So talking about the tankiness CP, you know, the tankiness is not going to be a factor at this point, given how tanked up melee creeps are in terms of gun damage and spirit damage.
Yeah, you're not going to be tanky when your overall soul count is down, you know, around 2 to 4k per person on average, if not more. You don't really hit the point where your composition becomes absolutely oppressive. Now, melee creeps posturing a little bit near middle. Right now, I don't feel like they need to push a mid-boss, not until they have a pick-off to go with it. Oh, there we go, the Mo comboing Mo. However, instant interrupt happened. Sizzlucky able to find Saya, even still. You see the chase down here, still trying to chase down the Mo. Gonna be able to finish off the Mo. It's 1 clean pickup for Llama Lord so far. Still looking for more, Dan.
Yes, this is a problem, because if melee creeps lose another 1 or 2 players here, this could be a mid-boss conversion for Llama Lords. That's their way back in the game. And right now is a massive fight outside the mid-boss here, and melee creeps trying to survive, but they are low on HP here.
You have so many low people on melee creeps. Killing blow is good to go. In this case, Calc not necessarily near any of the low people. That could have gone so much worse for melee creeps. They're able to disengage and just avoid what could have been surefire disaster.
Yes. Oh, it's actually kind of crazy how close melee creeps were to maybe actually being at a soul disadvantage. Lose that fight, lose the mid boss, and they are probably behind. So the fact that they all stayed up and disengaged successfully, I'm honestly shocked.
Well, your shock leads into a natural point to call in Mitch for a little bit of a breakdown on what he's been seeing here so far. A back and forth game where, you know, you look at that last fight, though, it feels like melee creeps just barely held on to their lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to put my microphone back on there. Look, we're at an inflection point, I think, in this game, especially now as, you know, Llama Lords are still trying to hold on to those walkers, but they've got a chance to start to come forward here. Young Calc looked pretty scary in that fight, and I think we're going to continue to want to see the Shiv be able to make a pretty big impact. I also like looking through the builds as well. Excuse me, I've had a chance to like have a look at sort of who's doing what. Saya is looking pretty frightening. I mean, at about this point in the game, a lot of spirit being invested in as well. So Poshipop also just getting those toxic bullets online. I think they're also going to be a threat in those fights that are drawn out to give the Mirage more time to go hand with the gun.
Now, Dan, as we look here, earn in movement for Llama Lords. One of the easiest ways to catch back up in the game if the other team will allow it. And melee creeps right now, not allowing it for free. However, if you look at Llama Lords, they might not be trying to go for a full turn. And I think they're content to defend Walker, get the defensive buff by being around Walker, and let Arkram solo push to the right. I don't know if that's going to work out well if the Mirage just immediately go in the rotation. Poshipop all over the split push attempt.
Yeah, and whilst it's been going on, the the Frozen Shelter was not up, but now it is up. Like all the ults have kind of refreshed it for melee creeps. So now if there was to be a fight over this urn, melee creeps are way better tooled to actually just crush it. And it's just not possible to turn that down in at this point. And I think Llama Lords are more than well aware of that. And in the meantime, whilst this is all going on, melee creeps have a Poshipop, who of course has Traveler online, you know, dealing with some of the creeps, like evening out some of these lanes that are a bit pushed whilst all this delay is happening. But here it is. Here's the chance on that urn.
Combo opens it up. You see the rescue beam coming out right after. Gets the Calco out of the fray. Now Naked goes in, Naked goes out. Immediately punished by Lemaine with the lasso. So this fight breaks down. The Frozen Shelter goes down. Calc has one here so far. Killing Blow though on cooldown. Got a second. There's a Shiv about to come online. Shiv now under the gun, getting frozen on out. A Song of Ice and Fire spells young Calc's doom. And melee creeps getting the better of the fight.
They're doing a great job of really not overplaying their hand, I feel, and just really ensuring that each team fight they take is well thought out and not overzealous, and they're going to be rewarded for it. You know, as they take this mid boss, it will be uncontested. I just think back to what could have been a bad fight into a mid boss for their opponents had they not had the sort of wherewithal to disengage in what looked like a very easy fight to try and engage with. So melee creeps showing great macro, great discipline, communication, all of the above.
Llama Lords are going for the steal. They're going to get it. No melee creep securing it. No naked magic this time. However, with 2 kills, Llama Lords still might be able to salvage something good off this. Getting a little bit of kills, evening the gap just a bit. Poshipop very, very low. Might get caught. Here comes Calc. Lucky with 2 so far in this fight. Calc on the hunt, and Rejuvenate or no, Llama Lords making some lemonade out of what was actually lemons here, Dan.
Yeah, amazing work. Just getting all those kills, getting rid of the rejuice. That's going to really help in helping to avoid some of the issues in map control that I think melee creeps would have sat on. Obviously, Llama Lords out on the map at the moment, still have to push these very deep lanes now in favor of melee creeps. But getting some value out on the map is going to be good. Seeing if they can get any additional value before they have to fully retreat here. The urn is in play at the moment. And here is the challenge for it. And you can see Llama Lords not really wanting to give up any of these kills too easily. They know that if they do ZP, that those walkers are truly going to be gone.
Llama Lords right now is really on the knife's edge of fighting for their right to stay in the game. The difference between teams is not so large that it's something you can't bring back. But if they lose one more clean team fight, it very well might be. Or even if they give up urn. So the fact that melee creeps has earned now, if you're Llama Lords, you're looking for any engage to start this off right. And you know, one bright spot here, you talk about income allocation, Rocane is a real threat right now at 23K.
Let's go blue.
That is always something to keep an eye on. We've talked about in the previous matches today as well, that Wraith scales so well into the late game. And it looks like the urn is going to be ferried back across here. So this might be that fight, that any fight that you were looking for Llama Lords now, about to commence.
Llama Lords, how do they approach this? Right now, they're not really in position to contest. They're missing 3-4 people near the urn turn in. And here we go. Lasso comes out early. Calco's a target at the beginning. Frozen Shelter down. Naked. Already using audience participation. Goo Ball now in. Scout looking for a little bit of disruption. AV burns down the Shiv. There won't be any Shiv snowball this time around. Lucky though, making the most out of Scout's disruption. Frozen Shelter now down for Axe. The true Frozen Shelter, not the one that Naked just stole. Scout though, stuck, can't get away. Melee creeps getting a slight edge on the trade outs here so far.
Yeah, definitely always painful to be up against an Infernus when you are the Goo Ball. And there is the Hex, a cute little bunny rabbit, just for a moment. But back into that Walker that Llama Lords were hoping to be able to protect, but it does not look like that's going to be a reality here, as now they've lost every forward objective. And it's just their base that is left to defend. And they have zero map control. So what was a slight advantage or slight disadvantage on the Souls has now turned into a 20k disadvantage. And the next issue is going to be that mid boss, but it's about 3.5 minutes before that mid boss is going to spawn. So still some time here for Llama Lords to potentially get a little bit stronger, try to coordinate something, but it's going to be painful because it's really hard to get out on the map, DP, when all these lanes are so pushed.
You say get stronger, but you look at the jungle just being completely devoured by melee creeps, where it's not just that they won the fight. They win the fight, and even if they don't go for a ton of push right after, they're going to swarm over the jungle like locusts and completely just deprive Llama Lords of extra farm while putting themselves even further ahead. And again, the problem here is one of allocation, where Sizlucky, you know, in terms of frontline, not the worst in where they're at, but it's just, this is right on the edge of viability for Llama Lords, and getting initial pickoffs is going to be difficult. You know, I do think when you start looking at what you want for an ideal audience participation, Frozen Shelter, not bad from Naked, but I kind of think they're at the point where he needs to get the Affliction copy, if for nothing else, just to maybe set up the Shiv Snowball. But easier said than done, perhaps.
Yeah, and you know, another silver lining is that Rokane is the most farmed for Llama Lords, and it is on parity with melee creeps as more farmed players. So, you know, Wraith has insane DPS. As long as Wraith is able to stay up, doesn't get targeted early in the fight, but can really leverage that damage, there's definitely potentials here for Llama Lords to find a way back in after a good team fight. However, just like you said, you know, we do have a decent amount of souls gained by melee creeps as they fell back onto the map. And the next thing that is happening is these bridge buffs. And you got melee creeps who will be in a good position to get the bridge buff on the right side. No one there towards the left side of the map, though.
I think it's just going to be Poshy Pop slowly walking up. Absolutely no one there. Llama Lords, I think they're just in this cursed position to an extent where they cannot play map control evenly, right? They have to play a little bit more towards their own side. They have to hope to catch someone out and get an advantage. And again, this urn that's coming up here, a little bit of an inflection point, but when you look at the Llama Lords comp, Dan, they don't have anything that's great at setting off an uncontested pick. They almost have to wait for a serious positional mistake from melee creeps.
Yeah. And so far, melee creeps have shown like great discipline in not making those types of mistakes. So it would be a first, I would say, at least in this matchup. But it's going to be another urn, it seems, to potentially create the fight that could lead into the mid boss.
Do they even fight the urn? Right now, they're looking. The urn's going to get turned in relatively for free. There's still poker on the outskirts. Melee creeps, though. Not too low just in. And of course, as I say that, Cool Cheese bursted down. Frozen Shelter now out in return. Naked down. Llama Lords looking for anything right now. It's Calc that's under serious focus fire. Not on screen, but Shiv about to fall. Rokane gets AVG down and trade. Not the worst between both teams here, Dan. A lot happened off screen, but you know, for Llama Lords being as behind as they are, they're again making a little bit of something out of nothing. But how long can they do that again? Another trade.
Yes, is lucky with another one. And okay, 3v3 at the moment here. Again, the stakes are mid boss is upright at this point. So got to be very, very careful about which way that one falls. And okay, well, melee creeps 3v2 now. Might be thinking about going for it.
They're going to be able to mid-boss with more of a numerical advantage here, right? Cool Cheese back up from death, still down 2. They can force it. Now, when you're looking at steal potential here, Naked could get there. You remember, Naked is a steal specialist. Rabbit Hex actually quite good at setting up steal opportunities. Brand new way to steal Rejuvenator. Can Naked, he who has done it so many times before, find a way to steal it again? It might be Llama Lord's hope here, but the mid-boss not even down. Melee creeps, they back off and say, no. We don't like how hot this might be, Dan.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice. When you were mentioning the Hex, I was getting worried. But melee creeps, again, great macro choices. Playing the situation where it's impossible for it to be stolen. If you don't kill it, it cannot be stolen. So they will like force back Llama Lords. But at the same time, everybody's up here for Llama Lords, and they are certainly going to go in on this EP. There's no other choice.
Is there a steal opportunity for Llama Lords? The game on the line, the chance to go to the money match. Frozen Shelter down. It's going to ice out the Rejuvenator for just a moment. Shelter is down. Rokane gets the Rejuvenator for melee creeps. And the finish is there. Naked not able to steal it. Frozen Shelter, steal or no. And Llama Lords might be facing the end here, Dan, as melee creeps look to end it in style.
Yeah, they've been doing a valiant effort in holding on this long, but it does seem like this might be the time. At least, of course, all the shrines will go down. The first patron is going to go down, and there'll be one more chance for Llama Lords, but obviously the souls that are accrued in the decimation of the base is going to give even more of an advantage for melee creeps, who have been so good this far. And well, you know, we doubted them a little bit in terms of the comp, ZP, but turns out that they did so well in the early to mid game, and I mean throughout the entire game that it just didn't matter.
Well, we did doubt the comp, but we did lay out the conditions for which it could win, which they executed on brilliantly. They had to get ahead in the early to mid game, and they did it with just the unrelenting pressure from Pocket, Holiday, Mo. Arkham though, find an axe. Llama Lords still not doing the worst job of catching Llama Lords out off some of these disengages, but again, Dan, the problem is how much further they have to go. And you know, while we're in a lull, Mitch, you've been seeing the lead here just get bigger and bigger. What are your thoughts right now as Llama Lords start running out of options?
Yeah, look, some of the fights that Llama Lords are taking are a bit sussy. Like the one that they took over by the Urn Turn-In, which was through a veil that ended up getting naked caught out straight away. Also, once you look at the items, what do you want to itemize into when you're up against a Geist and a Shiv? Probably Healbane.
Yeah.
There are like 5 Healbanes on the melee creep side, and those melee creeps players that want to have healing of their own, they've already bought healing boosters, obviously, to reduce the healing reduction from Healbanes on the other side. So this is the reason why Young Kalk is not sustaining through these fights. And you know, shout out to Sergi, but you know, it does appear that NA does know to buy these items. So those have been some big edges in itemization for melee creeps.
Frozen Shelter coming down early from Axe, already left away Pocket. Diving in, looking for an affliction. Scout under the gun. Sizzlucky and Scout both down. Melee creeps looking for the final push now. See the patron just getting pummeled away. And Llama Lords, they will not be doing another run to the finals this time around as melee creeps. Dan, they are in the money match. The patron is dead. Who needs frontliners anyways?
Yeah, who needs frontliners? Amazing performance from melee creeps. They had such a great early to mid game, just like he said. They knew that they had to hit up that pressure, and that's exactly what they did. And then once they got the advantage, they didn't overplay their hand. There was a lot of spots where they could have overextended, maybe a lesser experienced team would have, but they didn't. There was a lot of danger points that they avoided. So yeah, massive props to melee creeps. And this is the kind of game that you want to see from a team that wins this opening match, because we know who they're up against next, and you got to be on a good form if you want to give them a challenge.
Yeah, and you know, one thing that I think you have to look at here too is, you know, melee creeps. I feel like they've gotten better and better every week, and you know, Llama Lords, they've suffered some setbacks here, Dan. You know, they had to adapt to not only a new carry player, but also Lord NM, who is more the playmaking role. You know, we'll see him in the next match. It was the Hydra Nation special. They have assimilated those who have done them harm. But let's bring Mitch back in here. You know, Mitch, obviously we just heard it from you towards the end, but you know, I feel like it was a very high risk composition that melee creeps ran out here with, given how they had to execute, but they did execute brilliantly in the end.
Yeah, look, I'm really impressed. I think they got the pocket ahead early. It was another game where, you know, you just kind of pop off with their pocket. There was good early ganks, I thought, from Llama Lords. Sizzlucky as well, one of the newer additions on the Calico. Very effective, like 4 early kills. They're building not like a normal Calico though. I'm watching them like pick up a lot of these spirit items as well. Less like full tank, full utility focus. They really load up on trying to do damage, and you can sort of see like there's vulnerability, right? There are a lot of these players are taking spirit lifesteal, you know, on the side of Llama Lords, and it is a little bit hard to sustain in these fights against like Pocket, who's super fed. Affliction gets thrown down. Healbane countering those lifesteal effects and reduce them by a significant amount here. So melee creeps, you know, say what you want about their comp, but it was a situation where the conditions required for them to win started to be satisfied pretty early on. I think getting Pocket ahead and fed is a huge part of that.
Well, we do have some extra stuff to say, notably about the player of the match presented by Intel. And Mitch, you know, you were off here deciding who you're going to give it to. Definitely several options you could look at here, but for you, who was your Intel player of the match this time around?
Yeah, I thought Loman was great, but my play of the match is going to Saya this time around. I look, I really think that the start that they were able to get on their Pocket is pretty absurd. Over 40k player damage by the end of the game. Pretty absurd stuff. Just a really quintessential, you know, showing on this Pocket. pivoting off a good start despite these solo lanes being pretty hectic early on. And for me, that's the playmaker that sort of seals the deal.
Yeah, and we talked about that burst spirit damage. If you get it ahead quickly enough, the tankiness of Llama Lords isn't going to matter too much. And I love how we also saw one of those particularly epic afflictions that came in and chunked down 4 players at once. That really just showed the degree of presence that Saya had in a lot of these fights, these team fights, and that's really hard to answer. Like, I don't think there's any easy answer for Llama Lords for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw it at one point. It was on one of the side lanes. I think it was either lane 1 or lane 4, and it was just Pocket coming in and getting the affliction of the gods. And, Saya sets it up, and just not only can you not defend the blocker at that point, you're going to lose people left, right, and center. And, I mean, it just kind of shows the comp they were running was one that, if you can get ahead, you can keep using it to stay ahead. And they never had to deal with, the other edge of this compositional matchup, which is that if they got behind, they probably weren't going to be killing a whole lot.
I mean, you can see it here. Rokane, again, we're still seeing, we were talking about this a bunch in EU, right? Like these late game hyper carries that we've sort of labeled them, right? Like Wraith, like Infernus to some degree. 30 minutes is not enough time. Genuinely, like 160, like, 34k souls for Rokane, still not quite where they need to be, especially when their survivability is extremely limited, when there's like pressure coming in from this holiday, where you have these big afflictions thrown down, when Cool Cheese is just locking an individual, player up for a long period of time. It's really hard to be unfettered moving around the map. Like, you don't get to the point where you have to build unstoppable. Generally, you have to prioritize like your Tesla bullets, your intensifying rounds, all these important tier 3s. You cannot just rush a tier 4 and have impact on the game as like a Wraith or any sort of late game hyper carry. I think that was the issue here. Again, AVG didn't have to go nuts. We never really got that far enough whether your gun builds were that developed for you to take over the match, I feel.
Great performance leading into the next match is going to be pretty fun to see if there can be a repeat from Saya there on the Pocket. Pocket's such a fun playmaking hero, and also I love the confidence behind their team in terms of how they ran this comp as well, because we've seen even like very good teams where they will kind of in the draft almost outdraft themselves, where they're trying to just pick heavily against their opponents, take stuff away, and then suddenly they're in the spot where they've got a comp that doesn't really synergize with the strategy that they're comfortable with running. And so we saw a comp that synergized super well with the strategy that they wanted to run, and it worked perfectly. Like CP said, they understood the win conditions, they got after it, and they were successful. So I hope that we see some more of that.
Well, Melee Creeps, they have put their way into the money match, $1,000 at stake, and they did it by defying some of the common meta. No frontliners aside from one, no problem. Will that be enough to shake Hydra Nation and end their streak of dominance, or will Hydra Nation just add one more notch onto the belt? We're going to find out right after this break.